Melodie Robinson, obviously really exciting to have these dates now confirmed for next year's World Cup. Talk me through a little bit about the match schedule and how excited you are.
Yeah, I love this Rugby World Cup 2021 played in 22 match schedule for two key reasons. And the first is that for the first time in history, women's rugby players at a Rugby World Cup will be getting the appropriate amount of rest in between games. So at previous World Cups, including the two that I played in, you would play a test match and then maybe 3 days or 4 days later another one and then another one, and it was so hard on the body. This time Rugby World Cup Limited have lined it up with the men and I guess principles around giving players proper rest days, which is 5 days minimum. So what that means for everybody out there, the audience and people coming live to the games, is that the players are going to be super fresh and the actual product of rugby is going to be so much better. So that's exciting. And then finally, I think all of the games in the weekend, that's a biggie for me. Everybody here in New Zealand or anyone who travels over will be able to just pick up in the weekend, doesn't matter about work or school, and hopefully we're going to have really big crowds because all of those matches are either Saturday, Sundays.
You, as a former player, obviously you know what it's like to take the toll on the body, but how big of a change is that there is a bigger break in between?
Yeah, previous Women's World Cups, I think every player would tell you that you'd start out day one and the games are so intense that your body just really gets whacked up on day one, and then you'll go to another test match maybe 3 or 4 days later and you haven't had that recovery time. And then it will be the same thing for the next match, and by the time you're at the final you are so stuffed. So 5 days rest is what the doctors who know prescribe as minimum rest. So it's just going to take care of the players, and not just mentally but physically as well. So it's just going to mean much more running rugby, fresher teams and way better rugby to watch.
Absolutely, and Eden Park on the opening day of the tournament is the goal is to have a world record crowd, which should be pretty awesome. 3 amazing games too, including Fiji and New Zealand. So how excited are you about that?
Yeah, I know. Eden Park, 3 test matches back to back for the opening match. That's another historical moment for women's rugby, being played at such a historical and massive rugby stadium. I think when you look at the teams playing, you've got France out there up against South Africa to kick it off. Fiji, who no doubt will have a lot of Fijian support here, taking on England, one of the best teams in the world, and of course traditional between New Zealand and Australia. I can't wait, and don't think it's going to be your usual Eden Park rugby experience with just the pie and the Coke. There's actually going to be a bit more of a festival atmosphere with Māori cultural performances and also Pacifica cultural performances because both Māori and Pacifica have had such a massive influence in rugby, and particular women's rugby. So you'll be entertained at the same time as well as being entertained by the rugby.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obviously we talk about Pacifica. It's the first time a tournament in the women's game has been held down in the Southern Hemisphere. They're going to add a really exciting flavour to this tournament as well, aren't they?
Yeah, totally. The Fiji women's team has played 15s for a long time. Their 7 side is super exciting. I always think that they play, it's like NBA basketball on the rugby field because they're totally unpredictable, and as we know, the flair and the power is there massively. So I'm really expecting some good things from them here at home, and with the amount of preparation that they'll have together as a team, I think they should be really competitive, and I'm sure a lot of the Pacific Island communities will be here coming to see them and support them.
For sure, and for you as a former player, this is pretty cool. We're finally going to have this tournament here in Aotearoa in New Zealand. How does it mean for you, and do you talk to former players about how exciting it is to have this?
Yeah, we've actually, a whole lot of us former Black Ferns have started to reconnect. We've really started to think about how we're going to encourage other people to come. And we really want this to be, bigger than ever, because we know that the Black Ferns and the other teams coming here play some really good rugby. So it's been amazing. I think that we will get record crowds at these matches. We all know that standalone women's rugby matches haven't necessarily been supported in the past, but this is different. We've got 3 different Women's World Cups in the country over sort of a 16-month period. We've got a government that supports women's sport, and we've got a public that really watches and loves women's rugby. So we all think it's going to be fantastic, and I can tell you right now all the former Black Ferns will be there.